In 2012, director Ridley Scott returned to the universe he created 33 years earlier, and for about 60 minutes, it felt like he might have made something genuinely extraordinary. Let's start with what this film gets breathtakingly right, because he gets a lot right, and that's precisely what makes the rest of it so painful. Let's start with that opening sequence. An alien being, ancient, godlike, deliberately sacrificing itself to steal life on this planet. No dialogue, no explanation, just image and implication. It's one of the most ambitious opening 4 minutes in modern science fiction cinema, and Ridley Scott trusts you. He respects your intelligence and he says, here is a mystery, come and find it out with me. And the movie's opening setup is quite magnificent. Archaeologists Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway discover the same star map repeated across ancient civilizations that couldn't possibly have known each other. It's a genuine spine-tingling premise that humanity has been given directions to somewhere else. Someone out there has left us a message and a map, and of course we're going to follow it. And then there's the character of David. Michael Fassbender's David is not just the best performance in Prometheus, he's also one of the great science fiction characters of the 21st century. While the crew sleeps on the 2-year voyage, David is awake and alone. He watches films, learns every language spoken, and cycles through the corridors on a bicycle like a child in an empty palace. And in those quiet scenes, Scott asks the question the film never lets go of. What does it mean to be created? What do you owe the thing that made you? What do you do when you meet your maker and they ultimately disappoint you? These are not small questions, those are the questions throughout Prometheus, and for the first hour, they genuinely feel thrillingly alive. So where was the stumble and where did this film go wrong? Because we have to admit it does go wrong, and the frustrating thing is that it doesn't go wrong slowly, it goes wrong suddenly, like a bridge giving way underfoot. The moment I always point to is Fifield and Milburn and their presence in the tunnels. These are supposedly the best scientists humanity could send on a $1 trillion mission to find the origin of our species. They encounter an alien life form for the first time in human history, a serpentine cobra-like creature, clearly dangerous, and Milburn, the biologist, well, he tries to pet it. And also in the tunnels, the geologist Fifield, who was supposed to be mapping the tunnels himself, using robot probes, well, he gets lost. These aren't character decisions, these are plot mechanics wearing a character's face. The film needed people to die, so it made the scientists stupid. And the moment you feel a film doing that to you, well, the magic and the spell breaks. Now, and this is important, not everything in the third act fails. The self-surgery sequence where Shaw performs a cesarean on herself to remove an alien organism growing inside her is genuinely horrifying. It's visceral, it's desperate, and Newman Pace is extraordinary in the scene. That scene belongs probably in a much better film, which is in one sentence, the entire tragedy of Prometheus. And then there's the engineer. The whole film has been building to this. Humanity meeting its creator. Wayland, well, he's there, but he's ancient and dying, and he asks to live longer. And what is the engineer's response? Well, he rips David's head off and beats Wayland to death with it. No explanation, no words, no answer to the question the film itself promised to ask. Now, you could argue that's the point, that the answer is silence, that our creators owe us nothing. And if the film had committed to that reading and that take, well, it might just have been profound, but it doesn't commit, and it doesn't throughout. It just moves on, and it trades philosophy for chase sequence. So what actually happened? Because this isn't a case of a bad director or a weak cast. Ridley Scott is one of the greatest visual storytellers who ever lived, and the Alien franchise is his baby. Fassbender is also genius in his role, and Rapace is committed and brilliant throughout. The production design is also extraordinary, and the ambition of the film is definitely real. Most of the flaws that film historians and critics agree to lie within the script. The original draft was a much more direct Alien prequel, tighter, scarier, and more coherent. When Damon Lindelof came aboard to rewrite it, well, the brief was to make it bigger, more philosophical, and less of a prequel and more of its own thing. And individually those rewrites are often fascinating, but they don't always cohere, and the film ends up asking enormous questions, but then flinching away from the answers. I mean, one tragic irony of that soggy middle and bad third act is that the ending of Prometheus is actually rather beautiful. Shaw and David heading into the unknown towards answers the film itself never gives us. It's the perfect setup for a sequel that could possibly ask the right questions. However, that sequel was Alien Covenant, and it answered none of those questions, but that, as they say, is another episode possibly in this series. So how close did Prometheus come to greatness? Pretty close than most films, I think, because the ingredients were all there. The director, the cast, the budget, and the ambition. We also love that central idea that the search for our creators might be the most terrifying and humbling thing that we could ever do. It's genuinely one of the great science fiction concepts. And this film, like claim, close enough to touch great success. You can feel it in the opening, you can feel it every time Fassbender is on screen, you can feel it in the cesarean scene, in the cave painting sequence, in the very last image of the film even. Greatness is there, it's just trapped inside a film that couldn't quite hold it. And that's what makes Prometheus hurt in a way that a straightforwardly bad film never could. Because a bad film you can easily forget, but an almost great film, well, that stays with you. It asks you what could have been. And every time you rewatch it, and you will rewatch it, you see the version that almost existed. The one that deserved to stand alongside Alien, Aliens and Blade Runner in the pantheon of these great science fiction films. But it didn't make it, but it tried to. And that's Prometheus, the almost great movie that reached for the stars and stumbled on the way back down. Tell me what you think went wrong in that film, or if you think I'm being too hard on it, just let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see the next Almost Great, or you want us to continue this series, don't forget to subscribe, because the next entry in this playlist is probably going to be another one of Ridley Scott's films, or a film that has a great director's cut. And we'll see you there.